Hello.
How are you doing? How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Glad it's spring finally.
Yeah. You're sitting back, you know that.
March meeting of Plan Commission is called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, let the record reflect everybody's here, but no solicitor. Okay, first item of business, approval of the February 26th regular meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at these? Yeah.
Yes.
We have an updated copy here at our desk. One change that I would recommend on page 2, the second paragraph on that page, this got reworded along the way and it's a little bit tough. I think it should be saying, Mr. McKeegan said a policy could be made that simple subdivisions, lot lines, etc. There's no amendment to anything. We're saying the policy needs to be made.
Right. There might need to be an amendment themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there any other additions or corrections?
So we're gonna say, just so I'm clear, Mr. McKeegan said a policy could be made implementing a policy.
No, it said a policy could
be
He
implemented.
said a policy could be made that simple subdivisions. Okay?
We're taking that as second policy.
Yeah. No, Jeff, if you might want to draft something along those lines, and we could talk about it at one of our meetings and send it forward to the Board of Supervisors.
I'm not a drafter, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay. If not, feel free to, I'll offer you some suggestions.
Okay.
Okay. Development proposals.
Need a motion.
Pardon?
Need a.
Oh, we need a motion, yes. We have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as amended.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Peter, second by Kevin. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Development proposals. Redwood Farms, would like to say a few words to us?
Well, maybe before Pat starts, we might want to figure out what we're doing. So, Dan and I were just talking about this. Jeff, when we had this plan in front of us preliminarily, we approved it with conditions, or recommended approval with some conditions, including, I believe, some modifications that were supposed to be
2 lots.
the 2 lots.
112 and 132, which would allow them to encroach in the buffer zone.
Yes, we were going to talk about that. Yeah. However, first of all, we have not seen the supervisor's findings of fact included in the law. We voted on the preliminary plan. So we don't have the benefit of the supervisor's thoughts on it. And we don't know, as we sit here tonight, they may have addressed it at one issue, but we don't know whether the supervisors approved those findings. So I'm not sure.
Okay, let me read this to you from Irv, because this question already came up today.
Okay. Okay.
I got an email back from Irv that said, at the hearing, the applicant did not request a modification and argued the plan met all of the requirements without a need for a modification. The plan was approved as presented without consideration of any modification. There has not been any appeal, so as long as the final approval is consistent with the prior approval, preliminary approval, the township must approve it.
Okay.
So that's straight from Irv. And I knew in preparation of this, that's why I asked him.
Well, that's helpful.
Because I didn't see it on the finding of fact either.
Yeah.
But then when he brought this email to my attention, I do remember Pat making that argument that it wasn't.
Okay.
They didn't feel that it was a waiver.
Okay.
Because they were still, had the buffer in place, and it was just a setback approach. They weren't going into the setback.
Okay.
Or the buffer. They were just utilizing it as a setback number.
Okay. So So, all right, well, that's helpful. I would suggest, Jeff, going forward, that when we get, PRDs for final approval, that the package include the proposed, the findings of fact. Okay. Because that was not in your. Okay. Thank you.
You say two more applications? Just Martin?
Okay, I think when we have, well,
The two lots.
the two lots.
Two lots,
Yeah.
one modification of the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, are we talking 2 lots or 3 lots? Because
Just
in
two.
our preliminary, I think we reached that lot 101 could be made to fall outside the buffer, but this plan we received as final still shows it going into the buffer.
There's only two lots on the letter from you, the supervisors, only the two lots.
Right. So lot 101 still has to fall outside of the buffer.
So they can answer for that.
But so at this point, to sum it up, Pat, and Jeff, the supervisors did not take any action on any modifications, because no modifications were requested. So our task is to verify, so to speak, that the final plan is consistent, it's on all fours. Correct.
Okay. So if you could address how lot 101 falls in regards to the buffer, that would be very helpful.
See this for separating process?
Yeah, I would tell you to bring it right up, like center stage there in front of Dean, but that'd be.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got public exclude anybody here.
All right, I'm Pat Cooper with Gateway Engineers, Brent Miller from Miranda Homes. And we were here several months ago. We received the conditional use approval for a POD called Frederick Farms. It's 32 lot plan located around Sexford Boulevard. We submitted final plans for your consideration that follow the plan that was approved. We did receive comments from Mr. Slagle here. We don't have any issues with the comments. They're mostly nuts and bolts and follow up on final permits, etc. And we're just here for your consideration. If you want to talk about lots 101 or 112 and 113, we are still showing planting along there. But if it's okay, we still would like to ask for modification, being that we are buffering these lots from a high tension power line. There will be plantings along here. The plans on building these lots up real nice along the power line. We don't want to be forced into a linear line, a buffer yard, kind of looking planting pattern. So we still would like to ask for the modification. If I did not bring this up with the supervisor's meeting, then maybe we erred in not giving that consideration. What modifications are you asking? Which lots?
Lots 111 and 112. This linear planting, it's parallel to high tension power lines. They are going to plant it real nice, but being forced to do so like a hedgerow kind of thing is just not attractive. And secondly, the tree sizes, I believe, is required. Is it 8 foot tall? 8 foot height is required, and our experience has been that 8 foot high trees, the root balls do not survive and they die. If we could make them 6 feet with like a modification, we found that 6 foot tall trees planted will root, get enough water, and thrive and grow. Where the 8 foot tall trees, the root ball doesn't get enough water, they just don't survive. So, modification.
I don't remember any discussion about this in preliminary.
No, we did not talk about that, but since then, Robert Meehogan, who has the history with all of these plantings, said the 8 foot trees always die.
So the modification would be to take it from 8 8 to 6 feet
Correct.
tall on the trees.
The number of plantings will be the same, we're just trying to take it down to 6.
Is there another modification too, in terms of not having a straight line there?
Yeah, on 11 and 111 and 112, if we, we're buffering a high tension power line. We would still like the modification to not have to plant a linear buffer yard with trees every, whatever the requirement is, 15 feet.
As opposed to,
Doing a more creative planting that might not buffer the whole thing, but, plant a nice backyard, nice trees for backyard.
So describe creative planting.
I'm not a landscape architect, but not linear and not 15 feet apart. We want trees that aren't gonna grow into each other and die in 15 years. Space them out, probably half the amount of trees that we're showing right now, but spaced out.
So, I guess my thoughts on it would be, I'm not opposed to this, I've seen the site, I know where the high tension power cables are. I've seen the deer track, and probably that's the only positive use for that property, where the high tension cables are. I personally am not opposed to going from 8 down to 6, but what I do wanna hear you say is the caliper of the tree, number one. Number two, in lieu of just a hedgerow of trees, what I would suggest is like one tree here, one tree that is back behind it, and then one tree over here. So in lieu of fewer bigger trees, I would, if you could, maybe space them, 30 feet apart, and put one back behind it, so that basically it's like a picket fence type of design.
Right, but we don't want it to look like a picket fence. We like it to look like a
Well,
landscape.
I mean, when you're looking at it,
30-foot
it'll
spacing is-
look uniform.
30-foot spacing is wise, because in 25 years, they won't grow into each other.
But you know what I'm trying to say is one here and then one staggered in between the two. So when you're looking at it straight on, it looks like there are trees all the way along, but when you're actually there, it's like zigzag, if you wanna think of it that way.
Yeah, that's something I think that will look attractive and work.
Because you have a 20-foot buffer there. And if you utilize pretty close to the front of the buffer and the back of the buffer, I mean, that's my 2 cents on it. The other thing is that, in consideration from going from 8 to 6, as you said, you're not a landscaper, but if you could put some, I guess, lower plantings, in between, I mean, I think that accomplishes the goal.
Sure.
And just to be clear, I'm flipping through the current ordinance right now. The modification on the tree height is a modification under salvo. It's not a modification of anything specifically related to PRDs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Correct. So the supervisors in that, as to that particular modification, have a fair amount of discretion. I mean, if you can come up with a plan that achieves the same result, they can do that. But the modification that is applicable under the PRD ordinance, could you just explain that? Or is this all solid related?
Is the buffer purely PRD?
I believe the buffer part of it is in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. So what modification with respect to the PRD requirements are you asking for?
To negate the need behind 111 and 112 for planting. They're to be planted 10 feet on center. 8-foot tall trees, 10 feet on center. In 5 years, these are gonna grow together, they're gonna die in 20.
Okay.
And as I recall from what we have in the ordinance, it doesn't talk about the height of the trees, it talks about the trunk diameter, crest height.
I'm fairly certain that it's related to the height.
6 or 8 inches.
No, I mean, caliper, it's usually like 2 or 3.
It's either 2 or 3.
For-
I
for a
can't
tree
remember
that
which one
high.
it is.
But I don't think I don't recall it specifying a height.
I don't recall the height at all, personally. But I do recall it's either a 2 or 3 inch caliber tree.
Okay. If I'm leading everybody astray, I apologize.
But, and that's kind of where I'm going, if, are we talking about, so what I'm concerned with, Pat, is this, if this plan is on all fours with what the supervisors gave preliminary approval for, then we don't have a whole lot of discretion here. So I wanna make sure that the modifications you're talking about are modifications that arise from subdivision and land development ordinance requirements, not PRD requirements, because if this amounts to a change to the PRD plan,
We're not gonna go there.
okay, that's what I was, gonna be my
We're
point.
not gonna go there.
Yeah, I don't recall in the PRD.
Okay, so we are talking about Saldo type modifications.
I don't recall any height in the Saldo either,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
but I do recall a 2 or 3 inch caliper. But anyways, what I would suggest, again, I'm okay with 6, but if you space them 30 feet apart and then behind it 15 feet, so when you look at it, the trees will be 15 feet apart, but they won't actually be that close to each other because you're staggering them.
So really, you're going from 10 to 15, but you're going on a staggered pattern.
Yeah, we don't, we'll see what we can do.
And then the other thing is you have to put that word native species in there.
So I think in reality, that's not really a request for modification, but
To me, it's just whether the planning commission would feel that that's adequate for screening against the power line.
power line's way up there.
You're gonna have to get taller than that eventually.
Yeah, I mean-
A lot taller.
Putting it, things aside here. So you have this new plan that's going in. You have a power cable system, and that right of way is what, 60 feet or 80 feet?
It's 100.
Huh?
I think it's 100.
100 feet. And then back to that, you have the Manor Heart Woods. Now, where they're talking about, I also believe that is one of the detention basins for the Manor Heart Woods. So it's not like, so when you think about this realistically, you're going 100 feet, and then there's a detention basin back there, and then there's the backyards of these rather large lots in the Manor Heart Woods, and then you have $1 million home. So I think aesthetically, where the trees in Frederick would be to where the trees in where the house in Manor would be, the distance between those two sets of houses is probably almost like the length of a football field. I'm gonna say 200 plus. And you're shielding something that already has an overgrowth in and then I can tell you that in the backyards of these, in the Manor Heart Woods houses, it's all grown up, and I think you're not gonna see too much there either. Now granted, it is all pretty much the same elevations, but I don't think you're really gonna see anything. And whether it's 6 or 8, I can't get that excited about it.
I don't have a strong feeling about 6 or 8 feet, and I don't know that we ever specified the height.
But I would space them 30 feet apart, staggered, with one splitting the 30, and then have your landscaper guy give you something that's in the 2 to 3 foot variety that's mixed in between there. And I think that, my opinion, will be more than adequate.
And make it more like a solid fence instead of just trunks every 15 feet or something.
Right.
And I like the idea of trees rather than evergreens for what it's worth.
Now, is that really a modification then? If
Well,
it's
so.
not
I think what we're asking, I think what they're requesting is because they also have to comply with the Saldo, right? So I think what they're asking for is a waiver of that Saldo requirement, but the PRD itself is.
I don't think the Saldo requires a height.
But are you asking for something on height or caliber, or don't you know?
I don't know, and I might have brought an issue up that's not an issue.
Okay,
And again, I'd be okay with a 2 foot.
Yeah, I don't think
If,
so.
I mean, if you go to Home Depot and you look at like a 1 inch caliper, that tree is probably my height, so I'm already at 6 feet. Now, as soon as you say the word 2 inch caliber, you're probably already past 6 feet. So,
I'll talk to
Yeah.
next architect. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, the other,
yeah, but specify the caliper, not, yeah.
The other modification we're requesting is, on the requirement for a $16,000 fee to the township for each stormwater management basin. This project, was designed 5 years ago. We probably have 2 basins, but the DEP requires things to be split up now. And so we have 4 small basins. And we'd like to ask for a modification just to do something more realistic for 32 lot subdivision plan to see 2 basins, 1-time fee of $32,000. I don't know if the planning commission chimes in on this, but we are gonna ask the supervisor.
yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with the plan itself.
Yeah.
That's part of the developer's agreement,
Right.
which is between that gentleman, and the person who's missing over there.
Plus the 5 supervisors. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think your pitch, if I were you, is that the way that the $16,000 was generated was generated by me, but it has to do with obviously a 10-year period, which is what MS4 is about. And the second thing is the cost of a township person coming out after a significant rainstorm. That many trips during the course of a year is time plus the mileage to get there. The pitch that I would make is that if that's the way that it was calculated, when he's out there, there's 4 in a cluster. That's the pitch I would make. And then you would ask for,
That's an argument for a later time.
instead of 4, 2, is where I would go with.
Anything else?
No, take any questions you might have.
Dan, you wanna go over whatever you have on this?
Sure. So everybody has a copy of my engineer's letter dated March 21st-ish. And I know that there was a response from Gateway dated March 12th. But just to kind of go through some of the ones, just for the record. So again, we received the resubmittal dated March 12th. This plan does consist of 32 lots in a LDR district. The first one is that it has to do with the HOP. How are you coming along? I know that you say you submitted it according to your March 12th letter.
Yeah.
How's that coming along?
It's in PennDOT land, it takes a while, but we don't anticipate any problems.
Okay, so you agreed that the developer's agreement will not be processed, so to speak, until those are secured, right?
Correct.
Okay, just so we all agree. The next one has to do with Hampton and Shaler's service availability letter. So have you contacted both Shaler and Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority?
Yes.
And have you authorized them to start those 2 designs?
No.
Okay,
I mean, we've got to get approval of a plan before.
but you,
We
but I
want them
think,
to design something that doesn't get approved.
do you have a Hampton Shaler water service availability letter saying that they'll serve you?
I believe so.
Because I didn't see that one yet.
I thought Alberta had forwarded, but,
And can you show the planning commission where the Hampton Shaler water line is?
top of my head, I can't.
I think it runs along Saks, but I think it's on the other side of the road.
Yes, it is on the far side.
I think that's where it is.
Yes.
Okay, so it runs near your facility. Now, obviously, they're gonna make you, or the state's gonna make you bore across that,
Correct.
and you accept that challenge, right?
Yes.
Okay. We will need to see, before we consummate a developer's agreement, plans from both entities. And one of the things that we're starting to do in the developer's agreement now is, just because of a previous development that we ran into, is to have a pre-construction utility meeting. Because what we're finding out is that where you're putting the water line and the sewer line, for the sake of the planning commission, isn't necessarily where the water company or the sewer company ends up with them. And the biggest culprit that we have, of course, is our friends, the electric company and the gas company.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
So that's gonna be part of the next one has to do with the geotechnical. The other policy that we've started is that, in lieu of us being out there watching the grading and the cuts and the fills, one of the requirements is having a full-time geotechnical engineer out there. And there's a specific sentence in there, that I've crafted that I need you to make the geotech aware of that. So when they do provide this service, I need something sealed by them that says that they've witnessed the grading activities, cut and fill, and the key words is as a result of their observation, the ground will not slide.
I believe we talked about this before, but they will certify that they're going to watch it, and to the best of their knowledge, there will not be landslides, but there's not an engineer on the planet that's gonna sign something that it's stable and will not slide.
Well, they can put in some weasel words, but it has to be pretty damn close to that.
Yeah, weasel words are fine.
Because that's the way it's written in the sound, those specifically.
Geotechnical
quotes.
engineers are masters of weasel.
Okay. But you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes.
So the next one has to do with, on the second page, a minimum 50-foot easement along the full length of Saxonburg. Did you provide that?
Probably not. I think Mr. McKeegan might agree with me that.
But I think, let me
Why
just,
not?
well, let me just say it this way, more specifically, what I need is line of sight easements.
That's
For
no
both the
problem.
detention basin and
Right.
the entrance roads, because what we're running into is the HOA or whoever the heck it is, likes to plant vegetation or
Right.
vegetation naturally grows.
No problem.
And pretty soon I don't have sight distances anymore, so we're not gonna have that anymore. Did they get a copy of the Allegheny County letter yet?
No.
Okay, so the county may have their own comments about your plan. The next one has to do with the magical sanitary sewer easement. Have you secured that easement?
Yes, we do. Yes.
And that easement is to provide what structure through it?
Sanitary.
Is it a force main or
Gravity line.
it's a gravity line? Okay. And tell me you can get into the pump station by gravity?
Yes.
All lots?
No, the lower 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These first 6 have to have a grinder pump system that pump up to the gravity line, which flows to the
Okay.
pump system.
And is Deer Creek amenable to grinder pumps in their system for your plan?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the planning module process that we're in the middle of.
That wasn't my question. I know there's a planning module.
I don't, I'm 99% sure.
Let
but
me
I'm-
ask it the other way around. Do you have a Deer Creek sewer service availability letter that says that they'll serve it that way?
I'm pretty sure Alberta got it. Alberta's out of town.
Okay, we'll make sure I get a copy of that, because in there I'm sure you're divulging the 6
If
lots.
we can't get these 6 lots, the project's dead.
Well, that's my point exactly, as we go through the final review process. The next one has to do with the detention facility. Our public works superintendent wants the flat spot inside the fence. So you're gonna move the fence outside, there's no walking trail along it or anything like that?
We have access roads that connect all the bases
Okay,
proposed.
so we'll get to
So-
that in a minute, but the actual detention basin itself, there's like a 10-foot levee that's on the top of these things?
Right, and the vehicles will drive on the levee to get from one to the other.
Well, there's gonna be a fence around each one of them.
Can we I've done it before, can we put the fences on the inside of the levee?
He wants them on the out.
So you're gonna have gates, you're gonna have to have like 8 gates that they have to open and close.
I'll talk to Larry about it, but that's, so,
Dan, real quick, why would Larry want them on the outside? We're putting it in to protect people from the water.
okay, so what Larry impressed upon me, because I do have some detention basins with it on the inside, and I'll refer to Richmond Estates as one of them. But, he likes to drive, cause he's gonna be taking over these 4 basins, and he's gonna be, maintaining them. What he likes to do is to ride in his vehicle on the inside and reach like his backhoe down. And if the fence is on the inside, he can't, there's no place for him to put his machine in and to reach in to dredge it out or whatever.
The quick answer is we'll work with you to make sure this works for the township.
I mean, again, if I were you, the pitch would be is that these are rather small. So instead of having like 1 big one or 2 big ones, you've got 4 small ones. And is there a access road down to into and down the bottom of these things?
There's access roads that connect all of them, but not that go down into the bottom.
Okay, so I need you to modify that so that if I'm gonna convince Larry to put the fence on the inside, being that they're so small, I need some way of bringing a machine then down into them so that they
There's
can.
3-to-1 slopes on the inside. Machines shouldn't have any difficulty with that. But
Okay.
the issue, we'll work it out. I don't think
Okay.
we'll have to figure it out as planning commission.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm looking for. And I think maybe the best thing to do is have a meeting with Larry. And then convince him that you can do this instead of that type of thing. We already talked,
Can I ask a question, since you're talking about detention law? How long will these things hold water?
In theory, I mean, developers I work for scream because they've never seen water in these ever.
Well, I don't care what
They
you
are-
know,
they
I'm
are-
asking you as an engineer, how are they designed?
They're
What are they
designed
to
for
do?
whenever we get the big hurricane,
Right,
you know, Hurricane Ivan, it's gonna fill up and it'll drain 24 hours.
okay. But these are not intended to function as rain gardens, or are they?
Yeah.
Okay,
They're infiltration, some of them are for infiltration basins, it's all
okay, all right,
DEP lingo.
that's fine.
yeah, I really, well, I shouldn't say I rarely see them full, because I can tell you the ones at Richmond Estates real quick is that whenever development goes in, they configure them as the sedimentation basin.
Yeah.
So there's, all the orifices are blocked off. So at Richmond Estates, they blocked off all the orifices, and then people put about, I'm gonna say 12 fish.
Yeah, then you dredge out the sediment,
And then they, and all the kids scream and
Yeah.
they cry. And there's the fish flop around there.
But in other words, they could hold water if once they're up and functioning, if you get a lot of trash in there and block things up, they could hold water.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's when they need to be cleaned
Cleaned
out.
out, and that's why it needs to be cleaned out there, so, okay.
So the next thing is the 12% grade. So I'm gonna hazard a guess and say all of your main thoroughfares are 12% less, right?
The public roads, yes.
So the connecting access roads for your 4 detention basins, I need that grade to be, it says in the letter 12%, but I'll go up to 15%.
They're all under 15.
Get them in that neck of the woods. We've already talked about the geotech. You're gonna change all the crossing pipes to reinforced concrete pipes.
Yes.
The final stormwater plan is under review, and, you know, like you said, we can talk about some of that. The recorded plan, I'm gonna need that signed and sealed eventually. The survey date on the recorded plan. So how are you coming with the third-party permits, the Allegheny Conservation District and NPDS permits?
In process. We won't get any developers agreement until we get all permits.
So we already talked about the HOP, and that needs to be there. So, you're encroaching within the existing streams and wetlands that are there. So I'm assuming that you're going to get a permit from the Conservation District that allows you to get closer.
Yes. we have to do is analyze the streams and analyze the 100-year floodplain.
So that'll, again, will be in the process. The cul-de-sac rights of way, I would imagine that you've got 100 foot around each one of them.
Correct.
And the cartway width of the cul-de-sacs are all 50 foot to the inside of the cartway.
80-foot diameter.
I'm sorry, yeah, 80 foot diameter. The next one is when you're talking to your utilities, either I need to have sleeves put across for the water line service lines or the sanitary sewer, or I need to have them constructed prior to putting down the asphalt. So if you could relay that out to them.
Yeah, we'll do that at the pre-construction.
And make sure that I see those designs with those sleeves in there, please. The street signs, obviously, is gonna be part of the developer's agreement. I'm not gonna talk about the court. The next thing I wanted to just touch on is the next page. We talked about Deer Creek and Hampton. So on the roof collector lines, do you have a roof collector system on your plans?
Yes.
Okay. And then as part of one of your details, all of the lines running from the house to your roof collector lines need to be either SDR 35 or Schedule 40, and they need to be tested. Okay. Specifically, the connection from after your general contractor puts it in to when the builder connects those two, that's the key joint that I need to see. Just because I don't want another Majestic Hills happening.
This is new to me. So when have the roof, those are the downspouts coming down. Do they go into the retention pond?
Yes. They're collected in storm pipes that all lead to these places.
So any springs that you encountered, obviously, are gonna get put into the storm sewer system. The next one is, you had three intermittent streams, we'll call them. So I need to see those pipes across your roadways to those intermittent streams. So make sure that they're on there. The tree count is right there, and basically we're gonna confirm all the trees. Do you have a letter by chance from the fire department regarding the location of your fire hydrants?
Don't have it yet because we're waiting for final to talk about
Okay.
placement of those.
So we'll need that.
And I'll be meeting with them.
Sounds good. And it's been a while since I looked at this. Are sidewalks both sides or one side? So at each one of the,
Let me double check. They're in front of every lot. And this is the mail. Yeah, we have them on both sides, the whole entire project, yes.
so make sure if you would, to put the, I call it bubble wrap. It's the something detection,
Need the ADA ramps down to.
yeah, just
Yeah.
show me the ADA ramps and show me the bubble wrap, and then show me crosswalks, please. Next one is just the various fees, from the recreation fee to the traffic fee to the stormwater fees that you already mentioned, and then obviously entering into a developer's agreement. So I would tell you that the majority of what I just went over probably can be handled in the developer's agreement. A lot of these are third-party approvals. A lot of these that are deal breakers. I mean, obviously, if they don't get an HOP onto SACS, the plan goes through. Obviously, if Deer Creek doesn't accept the grinder pumps or their configuration, the deal goes through. So, I mean, there's some things in there that obviously need to be worked out before it goes ahead. That's my 2 cents.
I have a question for you, Dan. I think on sheets 400 and 400A, they show the rock construction entrance. I assume that's to collector and mud off the vehicles for the highway. Assuming that doesn't work 100%, how do you handle cleaning off the roadway so we don't leave dirt on it, which can become very
includes the cleaning of roadways.
So that would entail like a sweeper there every day or often needed during the day?
Or water truck. So,
Okay.
so because this is a state road, and they're gonna be having a HOP to access that point, all it would take is, well, they're under the scrutiny of the state, let me put it that way. I'm gonna tell you that the state isn't very responsive, and the way that it would work is that a complaint would go to Jeff would just call the state or whoever. Probably call the developer first and say, hey, get it done.
Call Grant.
But the key point is, you're prepared to clean the road if needed.
Call the conservation district, they get action up with them.
Yep. So, yep.
I'm still a little concerned. At preliminary here, I think we agreed that lot 101 would fall totally outside of the buffer area. Yet, I don't know what happened to that, because the plan, when I looked at the plan, it looked like it's extending into the buffer area. And
The edge of lot 101 is right here. The right-of-way line is much closer to the pavement, and there's a full planted buffer yard.
Okay, is it 25-foot buffer the whole way without any lot in it? Because it looked, to the plan, when I looked at it, it looked like it did overlap the buffer area somewhat. But I also know the lot 101 was wider than lot 102, which if it
Yeah.
were the same width, it probably would fall outside the buffer area.
We've got the required buffer shown, I don't have the dimensions on the lots, but we will be providing the required buffer yard.
But it will be outside of the buffer area.
And the lot will be,
The lot will be totally outside the buffer
yes.
area. Okay, but that, 112 and 132, I think we agreed last time that could fall into the buffer area.
We have one little notch
Right.
to allow them to get
And
it.
I think 132, that's in the buffer area.
I may be misremembering, but didn't we have a conversation again at the entrance area regarding entrance trees? Is that worked out, or am I missing
Well, we can't put any in that clear sight triangle,
Okay.
but we are planting a very heavy buffer against
Okay.
132 and 101.
Okay.
So Dan, you think they've met or will be able to meet all of your comments in your letter?
So I think from a planning commission's point of view, the original submittal, tentative approval, if you will, I think the board was in favor of the concept of what you now see here. A lot of what was being described are third-party approvals. I don't believe, and I won't talk like a lawyer, but
Go ahead.
you can't deny a plan or hold it up because of third-party approvals.
Right.
Thanks, Kevin. So really, the only things that I think from a PRD, from a Saldo point of view, that are of concern, and I think you've kind of worked them out, are lots 111 and 112, plus the one in the front. Those are the three big issues. The other one, of course, that I think we've kind of worked out, is the plantings, or the buffers that are being created in this project. The rest of these things are third-party approvals, with the exception of the fence around the detention basins and that aspect of it. So, even if they were, so my suggestion would be to approve it conditioned upon my letter this evening, because really, if they did anything in that letter and came back, I think it would be a waste of this board's time. Personally, I think these are things that Jeff Kerr and I, myself, and your solicitor can work out. Will they have any of these done before the township supervisors? Probably not. A couple of them they will, and I can discuss that with them afterwards, having to do with the detention basins and some of these other things. But I think what's gonna happen, as has been done with, we'll say Blue Run Road, development that you approved. I can't remember when Blue Run was approved, probably like a year ago. And it's just now getting its third-party permits, and it's just now working its way through. So this plan might be a 2026 plan. But, I mean, they've got a lot of work to do with these, and the government agencies aren't the fastest in the, between DEP, the PennDOT, yeah, I would, it's in their court. But you're probably talking 6 months for each one of these things. But what this will enable them to do, and if the supervisors go along with it, it will enable them to authorize Hampton Shaler and Gateway to then, or not Gateway, but, Hampton Shaler and Deer Creek to, because, I mean, they're probably looking at 50 grand each, well, maybe not that much, but they're looking at substantial monies to authorize those third-party entities, plus Gateway, to put together the HOPs and get all this stuff in. But that will give them a comfort factor that, you know, that at least it's half-baked.
But the developer's agreement and whatever permits they need to start work won't be issued until these third-party permits.
You're absolutely correct, Cody. But I can't.
And then until the developer's agreement is agreed upon and all the bonds are posted, this doesn't get turned over to get recorded.
Right.
With the county, so
Okay.
one thing plays into the next.
Okay.
So.
And just one last aspect. It does say in your SAL though that you can't, the supervisors can't recommend approval until Allegheny County has either exhausted their 30 days or their comments are.
And they'll exhaust it, because they only touch on the small, simple subdivisions, they never have anything to say about big ones. So you would think it would be the reversal,
Yeah, but,
they never do.
I know.
So I'll be surprised to see anything coming on this.
But if you do posture a motion, I would suggest that you condition upon the engineer's letter dated March 21st, 2025. And for what it's worth, I would also throw in there the findings of fact generated by your solicitor. And I don't have a date on this, but. Where the heck is that sucker? It was dated January 6th, 2025.
We haven't seen this finding of fact, though.
You have it?
No.
No, that's my point with Jeff earlier. We did not receive the findings of fact of the supervisors.
So we don't know what the
So we don't know what the
supervisors did.
supervisors did.
Let me turn this off for a second. It's pretty bland.
I'm sure it is. I'm just reluctant to have a motion incorporate something I haven't seen.
Well, I'll
That's-
forward it over to you, I mean, I know it's after the fact, but, you know, always been, when it was in supervisors, you know, they did findings of facts, and that's pretty much what it stated, but it's something you want.
Yep.
Definitely I'll forward it over. And I'll get you this copy, I mean, like I said, it's after the fact, but I'll email it over to you guys, so you'll see it.
Okay. And there's no modifications being requested.
The 16,000 per basin, we're going
Well,
to
that's
bring that
something
up.
will be handled elsewhere, that's not.
Well, I mean, just for the recommended part, I think it might be appropriate to say that besides making a condition upon those two ingredients, that the developer has requested a reduction in the stormwater management, whatever he's asking for. So that way the supervisors can zone in on those requests.
You could recommend it if it's something that's practical.
So what would you ask for?
No, I think I would, let me try it this way. I would propose a motion that would recommend approval subject to satisfaction of the Township Engineers March 21, 2025 letter, the findings of fact by the supervisors on January 6th, and that the supervisors take into consideration the developer's request to reduce the bond for the stormwater funds. I don't feel comfortable.
a second for that motion?
I would second that motion.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck with getting your permits.
Yes.
Because
That's our world.
the sooner you tear down that old house, the better.
Yeah.
It might fall.
Huh?
It might just fall over by itself.
Just a judicious mat thrown the right direction.
Been windy.
Cigarette.
Volunteer firemen,
Yeah,
training
that's a good idea.
No, they don't do that anymore.
No.
Because of the air pollution issues. And the fact that house is so close to the road.
Yeah, that one might not be good.
And that's next to the over. Okay. Good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We do appreciate the 6 o'clock meetings.
I know. I'm late now.
Yeah, I got that impression.
Any other? One thing that's not on our agenda should be public comment.
I know you skipped me.
Do you have anything to say?
Well, it's not on my
You
agenda.
must have something to say.
We need to add a public comment period in
We've
it.
never had them.
Huh?
We've never had them before. We want to have it.
There's a first
No,
time for
no,
They
everything.
just ask for public comment before
Cecil
we take a
Tranquil
vote on
added
any.
that.
I didn't have anything to say. I would have spoken up. but
Remember that,
a little
Dan?
bit.
Mark, stick to the calendar. Chris didn't have anything to say.
Yeah.
God. Okay.
Dan, you remember Cecil Tranquil added that to his last things to do list?
Well, Cecil's not here anymore.
No, he would always ask for public comment.
Yeah, I know. And I always forget about that.
I know.
Okay, anything else? We have no advisory presentations, no new business, no old business. We've got the correspondence, the letter that went to the board of supervisors.
Yep.
We have adjournment.
Well, can I ask, and I don't want to put anybody in a spot, have the supervisors given, and I know there's been discussion regarding the PRD ordinance, in terms of questions and answers, have they scheduled a public hearing yet, or is that still?
They're gonna schedule it next meeting.
At the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
They had the new draft presented to them at the last meeting, so
Okay.
they were afforded the time to look at it.
Okay. Do you have any idea when that public hearing might occur?
Dave, can you help me out? I
2
would
months
say if they're
later.
gonna
I'm gonna
approve
tell
it
you.
this meeting, it would probably be the meeting.
It'll be at the May
The
meeting.
May supervisors, they do the public hearings as part of their regular
They'll
meetings?
be, they do it before their meeting.
Okay.
So they'll be like 6
So I would
o'clock.
think they would do it before the May 14th meeting at 6,
Okay.
6:30, something like that.
So there you go.
That's just a guess, but it should be around.
Okay.
that time.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not on the website yet because they haven't scheduled it.
Right.
What's that?
I'm sorry, so the revised draft ordinance is not on the website because they have not scheduled the meeting
No,
yet.
it's updated.
It's on there.
It's on there.
Is it?
I have one.
Fine.
You
Okay.
can tell it says, instead of this way, they have it in the top corner, it says draft, instead of across.
Which section?
The PRD section? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the draft of the PRD.
Yeah.
It's on there.
So is it on the
What?
ordinance section, is it on the news section, is it on the?
Where on the web, I think
Where
where
is
on the
the
website,
website?
where on the
It's
website
on
is
the
it?
featured page, all news, go for PRD section, and I updated it to that link.
It's been there for a while, but it's been updated a couple times, right?
Well, the old one, the first draft was there. I didn't see the second draft. Okay, thank you.
I can double check that, Chris.
Do you have something,
Jeff.
Dan?
I'll look now.
In my pile of papers I was going through, there's what's called the Valley Lane subdivision or something like that. Is that on next month's agenda, or that didn't go forward?
We just had a lot line revision come in today, but I don't know what that was.
You didn't tell me nothing, you just said 3 lots.
So
and
no, I
then they were-
can't answer that.
So there will be another planning commission next month probably.
It's supposed to be a lot line adjustment, but I'm not sure. what
Yeah,
it's
it was the
The call
Howdy
just came
Howdy
in.
Emery's property,
That's been,
was the site of the black walnut old plan or something?
That's information that I sent you on somebody that wants to purchase one of the lots.
Okay, so that's not a go.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay,
that's the one.
that's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
I'll throw it away.
Is that it?
And just on things that might attract public, comment or attention, there are no, hints out there of people wanting to do any, oil and gas operations.
Haven't heard anything. Not since those guys were in
Last summer.
wanted to do the zombie change, I haven't heard of that.
Okay.
Any final comments? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved? Second.
Motion by Kevin, second by Michael. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.